Hello everyone and welcome back to the workbench, where today we're going to be building and reviewing the Hawker Hurricane Mk.1 in 1/72nd scale from Airfix. Now, if you want a more detailed look inside the box, I actually did the unboxing video, so feel free to check that one out if you're more interested in what's inside this kit. But today we're going to be building and reviewing it. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me on the workbench as I build this Hawker Hurricane in 1/72nd scale. Let's get into it. So then, the build started with the usual of cutting parts off from the sprue, and then I painted some of them in a gunmetal grey. Those are the landing bay areas, as well as some other bits as well. Now, this model itself was a bit of a learning experience for me. I made quite a few mistakes, and at times I definitely should have slowed down and tried to relax a little bit. This pilot figure was then painted in a uniform green colour, and then the base of the cockpit was cut from the sprue and put together using some precision poly cement. That includes the rudder pedals and the flight stick itself. Now, this process went just fine. I didn't make any mistakes here. Then cut the top of the wing out and I let that all set. Then the inside of the landing gear bay was added. I ended up not even using this at all, which kind of sucks. However, it was something that was included in the instructions, so I did do it. I still put it in there, and it was quite an easy step to do this. I then cut the rest of the landing gear out from the sprues and put those in place as well. They fit in quite nicely. It took a little bit of fiddling to get it in, but afterwards it was absolutely fine. And now the rest of the cockpit was put together, so you can see they're painting the seat in a brown colour, as well as cutting the cockpit, or the flight instruments from the rest of the transfers, and applying it to the cockpit. There was then stuck together. That was a little bit fiddly, but once it was in, it was absolutely fine. And then the rest of the cockpit, so the bottom half, was glued to the seat stay. And then the seat was glued into the top half of the cockpit, and the two fuselage calves were cut out and sanded. It did leave a little bit of excess, which I had to obviously sand down, but after I treated it, it looked absolutely fine. Then I practiced the fitment of the cockpit inside the aircraft and put the two fuselage halves together. And then the two wings were put together as well, before they were mounted to the rest of the aircraft, like so. It was a little bit fiddly and did leave a little bit of a seam, but other than that, it was quite a nice fit that could have just gone together slightly more easily. However, it was still a nice fit. After this, I used a little bit of a layer of putty in order to try and kind of fill some of the seams in. I then attempted to use my little spinny board thing I have to mount the aircraft on, which is actually really difficult. These little pegs don't really sit with the Hurricane. But eventually I did get it to work slightly. I used this to glue the back of the fuselage together a bit because it was a little bit stuck out. I then put the rudder on, and this was actually quite a difficult step, really fiddly, and it does come off later, as you'll see, but it is really quite a difficult one to put on compared to other Airfix kits. The elevators were put on without issue. They were really nice. They literally just sat in there, and then a bit of glue was applied to make them stick. And then after this, I made the decision to have this aircraft with its landing gear up. I was going to do it down, but I decided I wanted to kind of show off that bottom of the decal scheme I'm doing, which is a really nice black and white scheme. And I thought the best way to demonstrate this would have the gear up. But at this point, I was still unsure, so I did paint the landing gear down wheels just in case I decided to do that. And then at this point, I think my mind was made. I ended up doing the landing gear raised option. And here you can see I'm just applying some radiators, painting the insides first. That's what's on the painting instructions. Applying those to the aircraft, sanding it down, and then applying the next radiator, which is near the front. This took me absolutely ages to find for some reason, but I did find it eventually. This is then glued in place and allowed to set. And now, really, is where the mistakes start to happen. Up until this point, I was doing really well. And then from here, things kind of did go downhill. So here you can see me applying the landing gear and having the wheels masked as well, which is absolutely fine without a hitch, no problem at all. It's what follows that was really dumb mistakes from me. So I've decided now was the time to try and fill a little bit more in of that putty on the wing, as well as doing a bit more of a thicker one with the more basic Tamiya putty on the back. So the Vallejo one's a bit thinner, a bit more like professional, and the classic kind of basic one from Tamiya there to fill in the bigger hole on the bottom. I then tried to use, this is my first mistake, decal clear glue from, I think it's from Revell, to try and mount the canopy on. I'd never done this before, and it ended up going really badly, so I just reverted back to my usual technique. But it left a load of marks all over the canopy and kind of ruined the look of the model. So I was pretty upset with myself on this one. I probably should have slowed down or maybe done some kind of tutorial video on how to use the the clear fix. However, I didn't, and I paid the price. I then tried to make a mask out of the masking tape. And I tried cutting along the fuselage seams. I don't think what I was using was sharp enough because it ended up not working at all in the final product. I then painted my bottle. I airbrushed it without recording because I'm an idiot. So yeah, that first layer of brown, I forgot to record somehow. I just didn't record. However, it won't matter anyways. My first technique was to try and put on blue tack, which didn't work. I tried then priming the model to see if that would do it again, and it kind of started to work, and then it stopped pretty quickly. And so I decided to try and hand paint my airbrush on here, and as you can see, the paint's coming out very thick, really, really wet, which wasn't exactly ideal. I just tried to go with it anyways and see if I could get it to work, but you can already see now it doesn't look very good. I still don't understand why at this point I didn't just try something else to get the blue tack to stick. I just was so hell-bent on making it work that I just decided to try a different technique. And as you can see, when it's dry, it looks absolutely awful, in my opinion at least. So I decided to paint the whole thing green again and try it all over again. So I paint the whole thing green, and you can still see a little bit of the residue from before, but that's okay. I was fine with it. I kind of wanted to get this model off my desk at this point. And for some reason, the blue tack stick just fine to the green. So I ended up masking it all up, making my own camouflage scheme. I tried to make it similar to the scheme that was on the art, but I didn't want it to be exact. I wanted to have a little bit of creative liberty with this, and that I did. So there you go, you can see it all masked up. I then got the same brown from before and painted all over it. And then I took all of the blue tack off, and as you can see, when it does get revealed, it's actually a little bit better, and I think I much prefer how it looks now compared to how it looked before. However, the rudder did come off again, so you had to put that back on. That was a really tricky part. It doesn't really fit in nicely. I then hand painted some extras just because I wasn't happy with how that part looks. Once that had dried though, I started to prepare the bottom. I started by priming it with a clear plastic primer, and then with the first paint, which was an aluminium colour. Now, this is my second big mistake. For some reason, I'm not sure how, when I painted this, I didn't mask the top. I just masked kind of where the paints meet from the top and the bottom. And what I didn't realise was that the overspray had gone completely on the top of the model and ruined the nice camouflage I just spent so long doing twice. So I then had to try and kind of do some damage evasion, put some more tape on the top. And then I masked both the wings up for the second layer of paint, which is going to be a black colour, which is just applied to the right wing. So I masked up where the areas that are aluminium colour are supposed to be, and then painted the right wing. I made sure to overspray a little bit onto the left to make sure that I had extra room to work with when I painted the next wing, which is what I did next. I masked up the wing where the line between the two colours should be. I applied a little bit of extra black there where it had been chipped off by myself. And then I masked it all up, as you can see, and painted the second wing white, and then allowed this to set as well. So I was quite happy with the look of the underside of the aircraft. However, I now had to deal with the absolute mess that was the top, which was now had a nice thin layer of aluminium all over it. This is my mistake, of course, not an issue with the model. And I had to then hand paint some areas. I wasn't going to airbrush again because I didn't really feel like airbrushing it again. I was going to hand paint the areas that were most badly affected with the airbrush paints, which is probably a bit more of an expensive way of doing it, but oh well. I had to kind of paint quite a bit, as you can see. I really don't know how I managed to get the overspray on the opposite side of the aircraft, but hey-ho. I then cut the relevant decals and put them in warm water, allowed them to get wet, and then applied them to the aircraft. And the decals were another mistake of mine. They kind of just started to go. I really don't think this is my fault. They just started to slightly disintegrate. Maybe I should have left them in the water for a bit longer, but they were coming off the backing paper in the water, so I assume they were ready. So maybe a mistake on my part, but I feel like there might have been the decals being slightly below the average quality for cartograph. Here in this one, I don't know. Honestly, it's 50-50. I then weathered it with some Tamiya weathering in order to give it an effect that it's like it's taken off, with also some smoke coming from the gun barrel, so it might have been in combat, as well as some from the engine. And as you can see here, I painted the exhausts in just a rust color from the with the original plastic as the base color, and literally just the weathering effect over the top to use it as paint. Then I knocked this decal and moved it completely and had to redo it again, and that was a bit of a pain, as well as the propeller going on last. Yeah, this did not go to plan at all, and the propeller came off as well. I'm just really annoyed about this, and I'm trying to hide it through smiling and laughing, but I am genuinely so frustrated with myself. So off camera, frustrated me, pulled the canopy mast off, and it looked absolutely terrible, unfortunately. I then fixed that decal, as you can see, and put the propeller on. And this is the final product without the landing gear lights, because I didn't realise I hadn't put those on yet. I did put those on after this video. But at the time, this was the finished product. And yeah, what a build it was, actually. Nothing really inherently wrong with the kit, apart from that propeller. Apart from the rudder. I just made so many mistakes making it, and this was a massive learning opportunity for me. I think every model is. But on this one, I really just needed to slow down and take a break, and I just didn't want to. I wanted to try and get it finished, get it done within that certain day. This one ended up taking me a few days to make. I think it was about 3 days to finish this kit. And it was a really good kit, and it really is a shame that I messed it up so badly. If I had infinite time, I probably would have gone back and completely redone the paint again. However, I just didn't want to. I didn't want to waste more paint on it because I'd already done a second layer on the top. And paint's expensive, so I just decided that was good enough. I'd try and cover it up as best I can. But what do you think of the final product? Let me know in the comments. Was there any big mistakes you think I made? Well, I think there were a few big mistakes that I made. But if you have any techniques that you think would have helped me in this video, do let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Do consider subscribing. It is free to do, and it really does help out an absolute ton. And thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a lovely rest of your day, and thank you. Goodbye.